Welcome to Sexual Chemistry. I'm your host, Zoya Sinclair, and today we're diving into one of humanity's most fascinating and complex topics, the science of attraction. What really drives desire? What makes someone irresistible? And perhaps most importantly, how different are men and women when it comes to what they find appealing? We're about to explore cutting-edge research that challenges everything you think you know about attraction. We'll uncover why your grandmother's advice about personality mattering more than looks might actually be scientifically accurate, but only for half the population. We'll dive into the mathematics of beauty, explore why height might be the ultimate dating currency, and discover how your attention span might be secretly controlling your sex life. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why a pop song from the 1970s contained the brutally honest line, "Nice legs, shame about the face"? It's crude, it's sexist, but it reveals something profound about human psychology. Why would anyone reject the opportunity to bond with a young, fertile partner simply because their nose is a bit longer than average or they have a double chin? The answer, as we'll discover today, lies deep in our evolutionary wiring and reveals fundamental differences between what men and women find attractive. Let's start with what might seem obvious but is actually incredibly complex: female beauty. Both women and cosmetic companies understand that many elements contributing to female attractiveness are indicators of age, but beauty is far more than just youth. It's actually a trifecta consisting of youthfulness, body figure, and facial aesthetics. Here's where it gets interesting. Many younger women don't meet societal beauty standards for two primary reasons. Their weight might not conform to ideal norms, either too much or too little, or their facial features might not align with stereotypical beauty images. This tells us that youth alone isn't enough. There's a specific formula at play. But why do facial features matter so much? According to researcher Don Simons, the face is the most information-dense part of the body. Think about that for a moment. Your face is essentially a biological billboard, broadcasting information about your genetics, health, and even personality traits. Studies consistently show that faces with high symmetry are perceived as more attractive. Facial symmetry might signal robust genetics or good health during developmental stages. But here's the twist. Asymmetry isn't typically the primary cause of unattractiveness. Many people have perfectly symmetrical features yet are still considered unattractive. So what's the missing piece? The answer was first discovered in 1883 by Francis Galton, who made a remarkable observation. When he merged several women's facial photographs, the composite image was generally considered more attractive than any of the original faces. This experiment has been replicated using modern computer technology with female university students, and the results are consistent. The more faces combined in the composite, the more beautiful the resulting image appears. This preference for average features, neither too elongated nor too short noses, moderately spaced eyes, chins that neither protrude nor recede, full but not overly thick lips, prominent but not extreme cheekbones, and oval-shaped faces, appears throughout literature as the gold standard of female beauty. But why would evolution favor average features? This is where the Fisherian sexy daughter effect comes into play. Given the historical importance of facial attractiveness, a man who selected a less attractive partner might find his daughters having trouble marrying well, often facing late or unfavorable marriage prospects. In societies with limited social mobility, a strikingly attractive woman could marry into a higher social class, making her father's choice in partner a strategic decision for his genetic legacy. The Fisherian theory suggests that if men have an innate preference for average facial features, natural selection will perpetuate this preference. Any male deviating from this average preference would likely have fewer or less advantageously positioned descendants, as their daughters might be viewed as less attractive. Now here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. While physical attractiveness in women typically captures men's initial interest, research consistently shows that women prioritize personality and social status far more than physical attributes when evaluating men. This is perhaps one of the most significant differences between male and female attraction patterns. Men often rank physical beauty above personality and status when it comes to women, but women flip this equation entirely. This isn't just cultural conditioning, it appears to be a fundamental difference in how the sexes evaluate potential partners. But there's one notable exception to this rule, and it's bigger than you might think, literally. Women frequently find taller men more appealing than their shorter counterparts, and this preference is so pronounced it's been called the cardinal principle of date selection. Let me give you some striking evidence. An analysis of 720 applications for joint bank accounts by couples revealed only one instance where the woman was taller than the man. Think about that statistic. In a random pairing of the general population, there would be many cases of women taller than men, but when it comes to actual couples, it's almost non-existent. This isn't just male preference driving this pattern. Women actively seek taller partners while men desire partners smaller than themselves. The cultural significance of height runs deep. When people, including women who claim indifference to a partner's height, were shown illustrations of men and women, they often imagined narratives depicting insecurity or weakness among couples where the man was shorter. The metaphor, "he's a big man," as praise appears across many cultures, reflecting societal notions where taller stature equals power, influence, and superiority. But this preference has real economic implications too. Research indicates that every inch in height could translate to a $600 increase in annual salary in modern American society. That's right. Height has a direct correlation with perceived economic worth, making tall men not just physically but financially more attractive. Now let's address the elephant in the room, or perhaps I should say, the anatomy in the room. The preoccupation with male genital size is a common concern among men, largely because it serves as a signal of dominance similar to a deer's antlers. But here's the scientific reality. The size of male genitals holds no significant importance in sexual satisfaction beyond visual appeal. On average, an erect penis measures slightly over 5 inches in length and between 3 to 4 inches in circumference, though there's enormous variation. While larger ones may appear impressive, they don't provide more effectiveness than smaller ones, which can be equally satisfactory or even preferable in certain situations. Here's why. Only the initial few inches of the vagina are sensitive, meaning smaller penises can actually be more comfortable in some positions. Most women report that technique and how a penis is used has far more relevance than its size. The excessive concern over genital size is largely irrational and often influenced by perspective differences when men view their own versus others' genitals. Solutions like lotions, stretching exercises, or surgery are unreliable and potentially unsafe, much like attempts to increase one's height. This reassurance extends to women as well. Few women are truly too small. With adequate lubrication, ample foreplay, and time for arousal, penetration is usually comfortable. Concerns about being too large can be addressed through positioning and exercises like Kegels. The key insight here is that genital anatomy naturally influences which sexual positions might be most pleasurable for a couple, but it rarely creates actual limitations. Adaptability is typical among both men and women, with only extraordinary circumstances posing practical exceptions. Let's talk about something that might make you uncomfortable: the role of wealth in sexual attraction. Picture this scenario: a man whose appearance might resemble the crypt keeper, hardly appealing under normal circumstances, but what if this same man owns a private jet, multiple properties in Italy, and a vast publishing empire? Suddenly, for many women, the equation changes dramatically. This attraction to wealth and status isn't shallow or materialistic in the way we might think. It's deeply evolutionary. For women, a man in a tuxedo who happens to own substantial assets serves as a powerful stimulus that can sometimes completely overshadow physical appearance. Conversely, for men, the wealth equation works differently. Physical attributes like symmetry, large breasts, wide hips, narrow waists, shiny hair, and full lips generally create significant appeal regardless of a woman's financial status. While most men wouldn't be attracted to a lifeless plastic figure, the commercial success of products like real dolls suggests that these physical attributes powerfully affect male perception, sometimes more than personality or wealth. Now we're going to dive into some fascinating research that reveals beauty might actually be mathematical. Psychologist David Buss has dedicated his career to exploring mate selection preferences, and his work has uncovered something remarkable: a specific physical characteristic that plays a pivotal role in quick attraction assessments. It's called the waist-to-hip ratio, and across global studies, regardless of varying cultural preferences for body types, men generally favor a ratio where the waist is approximately 70% the size of the hips. This ratio, ranging from 0.67 to 0.80, isn't just aesthetically pleasing, It's an indicator of physical health and reproductive potential that men intuitively recognize as attractive. Supporting evidence comes from a 1993 study of Playboy centerfolds that found despite models becoming thinner over the years, their average waist-to-hip ratio consistently remained around 0.70. This empirical evidence highlights a natural, seemingly hardwired inclination among men for specific proportions. But here's where it gets really interesting. Research by psychologist Carrie Johnson in 2005 used eye-tracking technology to observe how people assess attractiveness. Both men and women initially focused on the face before assessing the hip area to infer gender. But when men evaluated attractiveness, they were instinctively drawn not just to the natural ratio of 0.70, but even more so to exaggerated biologically impossible ratios of 0.60 and 0.50. These amplified features function as what scientists call superstimuli, enhanced cues that captivate attention beyond natural limits. Think Barbie dolls, anime figures, or ancient fertility statues. Men's cognitive processes favor these ratios unconsciously, with no built-in mechanism to disregard unrealistically small waist sizes. Johnson's research also revealed something fascinating about behavior. When women believed their walking was being evaluated for sexual appeal, they involuntarily enhanced their hip sway, visually altering their perceived waist-to-hip ratio. This shows how deeply embedded these preferences are in our psychology. Now let's explore perhaps the most groundbreaking area of modern sexuality research: the role of attention in sexual desire. Since Masters and Johnson's pioneering work, researchers have developed new models of sexual response, with the incentive motivation model standing out for its emphasis on attention within the sexual response cycle. This model challenges everything we used to believe about sexual desire. For decades, experts thought sexual desire accumulated like pressure in a tank, and sexual activity was simply a release valve to restore balance. But this hydraulic model fails to explain many people's experiences, particularly women with low sexual desire. Here's the key insight. The longer individuals with low desire refrain from sex, the less they perceive a need for it. Their motivations for sexual activity often pivot towards satisfying a partner rather than addressing personal desire. This suggests sexual response aligns more closely with emotional responses and is triggered by external stimuli. Think about happiness. It doesn't emerge from internal reserves, but from enjoyable experiences or external events that elicit this state. Sexual responses work similarly. They're activated by triggers, a thought, a visual cue, an action from another person. The range of stimuli capable of inciting sexual responses varies dramatically among individuals, and the potency of these cues can evolve over time or throughout a relationship. Here's where attention becomes crucial. Attentional processes connected to memory determine whether we attribute sexual or non-sexual meaning to a trigger based on our historical experiences. Attention is essential for forming both physical and mental responses to sexual triggers, whether excitement, arousal, or neutral indifference. A landmark 1976 study demonstrated this beautifully. Sexually healthy male college students listened to erotic narratives through headphones in one ear, while increasingly complex math problems were presented to the other ear. As the math tasks became more challenging, participants' focus shifted away from the erotic content, making it difficult for them to achieve physical arousal. This study revealed something profound. Attention is fundamental to sexual response. When our attention is divided or focused elsewhere, even the most arousing stimuli can lose their power. This has enormous implications for understanding and treating sexual difficulties. The incentive motivation model also reveals how biological factors influence sexual reactions. Hormones and neurotransmitters, the brain's chemical messengers, work in concert with psychological triggers to create sexual response. The interaction between our biological disposition and meaningful triggers can instill sexual response, but only when we're paying attention. This focus on attentional processes is vital for both sparking and maintaining sexual arousal. Understanding that attention is fundamental to sexual response suggests that inattention could contribute to sexual difficulties. This insight has led researchers and clinicians to explore how attention training might improve sexual response and address dysfunction. The model explains why the same trigger that once excited a partner might later become annoying. Our responses to sexual cues can transform over time as our attention patterns, memories, and biological states change. So what does all this research tell us about what women want and how it differs from what men want? First, we've learned that attraction operates on fundamentally different principles for men and women. Men are primarily visually oriented, drawn to specific physical markers like facial symmetry, average features, and precise body ratios. These preferences appear hardwired and consistent across cultures. Women, conversely, place personality and social status above physical attributes in most cases, with height being the notable exception. The preference for taller men seems to tap into deep evolutionary associations between size and power, influence and resources. We've discovered that many common anxieties about physical attributes, particularly genital size, are largely unfounded. Technique, attention, and compatibility matter far more than measurements. But the story doesn't end here. There's a lot more than a woman wants, beyond the physical and the material. So what is it? Could it be the emotionally aligned mental state? Could it be a mature behavior? We've got all the answers. Download the Skoob app now to get access to the full story for free. Head on to the App Store or Play Store and dive deep into understand what women truly want. And Vanda, thanks for joining me on this journey through the science of attraction. Until next time, keep questioning what you think you know about desire. The research might just surprise you.